Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order.
There's nobody here after we were done.
And now we'd like to welcome everyone to the January 25, 2022 regular meeting of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District Board of Trustees. We will start the meeting as normal with a thought for the day. And again, it has to go to all of our people in the military and the police and the firefighters and the health people, and for all the things they do for us, keeping us healthy and safe each day. Let's take a moment of silence. Thank you. We're going to go with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Brinker, would you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Nugent.
Present.
Trustee Brinker's here. Trustee Morrison.
Here.
Trustee Amlett.
Present.
Chairman Manow.
Present.
John Coffey is in the room. Stephanie Brown's in the room. Mackenzie's in the room. And our attorney's in the room.
And also Rich is in the
And I
back.
see Richard Armington back there. And Matt Getz, now Guy. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. You looked at the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Mr. Nugent.
I would like to add quickly 11D, and that is per request a discussion around the mandatory 2 persons per golf cart.
Discussion of the 2 golf carts.
2 riders in the golf cart.
Okay, just so everybody understands, interpreted as not necessarily 2 riders, it's 2 carts per foursome is what we approved. That's the way it is. It's not just 2 riders, so it's either way, it's the same thing, but people mistake that sometimes. Okay, we'll put that as 11D, we can discuss it then. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, can we have approval of the agenda, motion to approve the agenda with the addition of 11D, discussion of 2 riders of golf cart? Moved by Mr. Nugent, I think, and seconded by Mr. Morrissey. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Presentation proclamations, we have none. And approval of the minutes. We have minutes dated January 6th of a special meeting, and you have the BOT regular meeting minutes dated January 14, 2022. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the minutes dated January 6, 2022 and January 14, 2022?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Amos made a motion, seconded by Mr. Nugent. Comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Nugent, Treasurer's Report.
The cash balance in the general fund as of January 18th, 2022, $2,500 in petty cash. Operating cash at the MB&T, $530,029.63. Interest-bearing accounts, MB&T Money Market, $3,151,170.14. SBA Reserve Account, $700,053.16, for the total cash balance in the general fund of $4,383,752.93. Our daily deposits and assessments received through January 18th. Daily deposits of $42,894.21. Golf revenues of $17,128.89. Assessments received $181,105.36. For the total deposits of $241,128.46. Total expenditures of $5,000 above, is $138,811.13. Expenditures under $5,000, $57,850.05, for a total expenditures of $196,661.18. I respectfully submit the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report and pay bills as presented? Mr. Baker made a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Morrissey, comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Audience participation. Is anyone audience participation? Okay, audience participation is closed. Let me do a couple things here. We have a short agenda, but because we have two fairly new members, Mr. Amos has been on for a few months, but then again, Mr. Brinker. Let me go through a couple things so we all understand, so I don't have to sit here trying to, like, pulling teeth sometime when I'm trying to get everybody else to jump back in. A couple things, procedures of how our meeting go, and I'll do it very quickly. Remember that this regular meetings are a business meeting of the Board of Trustees. They're there to approve bills and to deal with the agenda items as presented on the agenda. Having said that, agenda items then have a recommendation from staff or from someone, it'll be a recommendation. And in order to discuss that, issue, you have to have a motion to bring that issue on the floor. Doesn't mean we're approving it. You could be against it, but we have to have a motion and a second to bring it on the floor for discussion. If it doesn't happen, the item simply goes away. You have to understand that. If there's not a motion and a second, there's no discussion. It's just gone away. Okay, we don't have anything going with it. So you do have to do that. Also understand that, and then, by the way, then you go yes or no vote on that motion, and you could have another motion then and go from there to do something different. But you have to always have something to get it to the floor to discuss, and it's agenda items. Audience participation. Remember that for transparency reasons, we allow the audience to have 3 minutes to say anything they want about any agenda item. We go over that even and allow them to talk about almost any item they want to. We've really never said you can't talk about this because it's not an agenda item. They have 3 minutes. We do not get into discussions according to our bylaws, and we do not get into discussions under audience participation. The chairman can refer, can say or answer some questions, but we don't have a discussion during audience participation with the board or with audience members. Once that's closed, we are now there to do the business of the board, and the audience has no further input into our meetings. 2 other points, and we have to make sure and remember that we have, and I used to always say as a superintendent of schools, 4 board members do business. Well, on this board, 3 board members do business, meaning you have to have a 3-1-3-2 vote in order to pass something. No individual trustee has any authority to do anything, including telling staff or contractors or anyone else how to do anything, and they shouldn't be doing that. It is up to the board to decide issues today, and the board does not tell staff how we do things or contractors how we do things. Our job is to set policy and let staff do that, but to do their job. So again, 3 trustees do business. If when we're in discussing issues and items, please just, sometimes they look at me, people do, and I answer on behalf of the board, but please feel free to jump in, raise your hand, hit your button, say, wait, I don't agree, I want to do this. I simply try to do it on behalf of the board to answer on your behalf a lot of things that happen. But I sometimes feel like I'm pulling teeth trying to get other people to jump in. So please make sure you jump in. I don't mean to dominate this and take it over. I do it to try to help everyone. So please understand that. Okay, having said that, let's go to new business. Acceptance of donation request, a bench for golf course. Mr. Coffey.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, residents gathered here watching at home. Per the BBRD policy manual, residents requesting to donate items are required to have prior board approval, donate the funds, and staff procures the item. Residents Paradis and Mr. Trella were requesting to donate a bench in memory of Mr. Pete Sexton, who died last year. We have researched the cost of the bench, which is $777.15, and Mr. Cruz has approved the location on the golf course. The staff recommends DOT waive the 90-day clause and accept the donation for the bench on the golf course. So I erred in defining the 90-day clause. The policy manual states donations cannot be accepted before 90 days after a person has died. The donators request this be waived so they can see the bench in its place before going back home later this spring. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve staff recommendation to waive the 90-day clause and accept a donation of $777.15 from Ms. Paradis and Mr. Trella for a bench on the golf course? Mr. Morrissey makes a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brinker. Comments, questions?
I just have one comment. I'm just not really sure why that's even in there. Why would we have to do that? If somebody wants to donate something as a memorial, you know, for a deceased person, why do we have to wait 90 days to accept it? I'm just not sure about that. I mean, I'm all sure accepting it, but I don't know why people would have to wait 90 days and do this anyway.
That's been in the policy manual a long time. It was explained to me when I first got here. It was trying to avoid someone rushing into a donation out of grief of a person who's dearly departed recently.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a motion to accept the donation, that's number one. Number two, you definitely have to have a motion to approve whether someone can even do this, because this gets to be a very, very touchy subject. Again, I go back to schools and, you know, people wanted to have donations always for everyone, every student who had a problem, etc. So you have to do that. Why the 90-day rule there? Again, something that could be looked at.
I would just brought it up.
Yep.
I'm all for it. I think we should pass it.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Selection of RFP evaluation committee member for pool number 3 parking lot paving project. Mr. Coffey.
As foreshadowed earlier at the town hall meeting, the FY22 budget contains funding for paving of the Pool 3 parking lot, which currently has asphalt millings. This RFP will solicit formal bids. The policy manual requires 75,000 and over, so err on the side of caution of issuing an RFP. Policy manual has a process for 3 voting members, a trustee, an employee from the user department, and a non-employee resident, plus 2 non-voting, the chairman and myself. For this RFP, and we have one that follows, I've asked Mr. Jeff Bruneau, and he's accepted being a non-employee resident voting member. This will be issued tomorrow and will run through March 14th. The opening of the RFP is March 15th. Therefore, the staff recommends the board select 1 trustee to serve as voting member, and these are going to be advertised on our website and on Demand Star, which is a service where vendors look for projects.
Do we have a nomination or anyone volunteer to sit on this RFP for the parking lot? I got 4 of you. I already have to be there.
I would, but I know nothing about parking lots.
No. Mr. Morrissey, Mr. Brinker?
Go ahead, look at me. Go ahead.
Mr. Morrissey, thank you for volunteering. So do we need a motion to approve that? Huh? Okay, can we have a motion to approve Mr. Morrissey as the trustee serving on the RFP committee for the parking lot?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Amos makes a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Brinker? Comments, questions? You can't decline them. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Again, I have to tell you as we go on, this may be one of those items, as we indicated during the budget thing, that we end up looking at. determining, depending on cost, depending on things. At some point, as we go into our budget, we do have to sit back and say, here's how much money we have, here's the things we're going to, that we know known costs, here's what we have left over, here's what we have planned. What is it that we then absolutely need to do, and what are some things possibly we could put off? In my case, I have specific items that, you know, the 19th hole, the kitchen, the lounge, doing some seating and that, those are things we have to get done for people. They're big items. There may be some things we have to look at some point, and this could be one of them. So again, it'll come up for discussion later. Okay, selection of RFP evaluation committee member for 19th hole kitchen renovations and walk-in coolers. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Originally, staff was soliciting quotes for the walk-in cooler at the 19th hole, and some of the initial feedback we were getting from vendors was a very lengthy delay on walk-in cooler parts and equipment. Therefore, to try to work off economies of scale, staff is recommending coupling the three projects of the kitchen renovation, which is a new stove and hood, with the new cooler at the 19th hole with the new cooler at the lounge. The combined budgets are approximately $185,000. Once again, this will work similar to the other one we just did. Mr. Klosky will be the non-resident voting member on this one. This has a slightly different dates. It advertises starting on the 27th and through February 28th. The evaluation opening is March 8th. Therefore, staff recommends the board appoint one trustee as a voting member.
Okay, you heard the recommendation, we need one trustee. Mr. Nugent. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Nugent to this committee? Somebody gotta make a motion. Oh, Mr. Rinker makes a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Amos, second. Any comments, questions, comments? Anyone else wanted to be nominated for this committee? Yeah. No other nominations? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And again, that issue, because the coolers and the walk-in coolers and workman's comp issues and safety issues, and the kitchen sink because of sweatshop issues, the kitchen stove over there are very, very important, and we have to get those things done. 11D, golf carts, 2 riders, 2 carts. Let me make sure we go back and everybody understands before we get into a discussion. Even though it came out that we were telling people they had to have 2 riders per cart, that isn't what we were telling anybody. And it made sure that everybody knew that the first day it came out. There was a lot of confusion over that, and we cleared it up that day on the golf course. What we've done is gone back to 2 carts per foursome. It doesn't matter whose carts they are. As Mr. Coffey explained at the last meeting, once the owner's cart is on the course, it's put into the fleet as if it's one of the carts of the 2 carts that's being used. It doesn't have to go out, but if it does, then it's one of the 2 carts that goes. So Mr. Nugent, go ahead and go from there.
Yeah, I'm hearing multiple complaints about it being mandatory in a foursome with 2 carts, that 2 people have to ride per cart. Golfers want to go back to it being their own discretion. They want it whether or not they feel comfortable with the person who's going to ride with them. They're indicating to me that COVID is on an uptick, that they want to use everything possible to prevent them from contracting the illness. They either have medical issues themselves or live with somebody who has a medical issue. They just want the ability to choose whether or not they want to ride by themselves or have somebody ride with them.
Other comments, questions? I've received a lot of this, and I've gone through a lot of this with everybody over there. And as unfortunately, most of the time when the guys who are talking to me, about this issue. And when they're talking to me, there's 40 or 45 guys sitting around at 8 to a table as they tell me that they don't want to be in a cart with somebody. And it kind of defeats the purpose of their argument. And I understand the point though. I've had half a dozen calls. I've actually been called everything you could imagine by some very sweet little old ladies. And I had a couple of very nice gentlemen call me. But I didn't know they knew that language. That's one of the things they call me. And I didn't know with all my degrees that I was that stupid. So it's an issue I know they're concerned about. Again, though, as I told someone, you know, there isn't a single course around here that has individual carts anymore. There isn't a course anywhere I know of that does that anymore. The people go to music bingo, they go to the dinner dances, they sit out there, 40 people, 8 to a table, they sit in the 19th hole, they sit in the lounge. I just don't know if we need to go back the other way. It's an issue I'm undecided about, but other comments, questions, please, everybody. Mr. Amos, you must have some thoughts.
Well, I was just wondering if he was talking about private carts and or company carts.
I basically, with my email on my phone blowing up, it is giving the right back to either the owner of the cart, or if they're using a cart that we own, the right to be able to choose if somebody rides with them.
And the problem with that, I understand, and one other things though which is unfortunate, because all of a sudden people start throwing in there, and by the way, I don't like people who smoke, and I don't like these people who smoke cigars, and I don't want them riding with me. And, you know, if anything, we gotta stick to talk to COVID, but I've heard everything on every side, and again, you do have to remember that the course, we, the Board of Trustees, through the golf course, determined that we have 2 carts per foursome, because whether people like it or not, it does less traffic on the course, less tearing up of the course, those kinds of things. That's why people do that in all the courses. The COVID issue is something still out there, so I don't know where you want to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Yes,
just
sir.
chime in, regardless of how the board decides, I would encourage you to make this a permanent rule rather than drag this out every meeting, because COVID doesn't appear to be going away, and you know, there's a group of folks who want different rules for Barefoot Bay Golf Course and other courses, as you've mentioned. So we just need to make a rule and stick with the maximum.
Where are we, folks? I'm not sure I'm in favor of going back to single car riders, not with everything else that we do. And I understand their point. I have to tell you that I left Mass Saturday afternoon because of all the people in Mass, there were probably 12 people wearing masks, and they were coughing and hacking, and we wear masks. I told my wife, I said, I can't stay here in this. I'm just a little too afraid. But again, it's different riding a cart out in the open. Every time we travel with these same people, we go to Sebastian, we go to Habitat, we go to Sandridge. Never do you allow individual carts or individual riders. No one does.
Yeah, but you have a choice when you go there.
We have a choice to play or not.
Yeah, correct.
Well, you have a choice here to play or not.
But should that necessarily be the only choice?
Well, it's the same choice you have when you go there. I mean,
And that's the reason a lot of people don't go to other golf courses.
the board it's your board. Mr. Brinker.
I used to golf for years, and I was at the high dollar country clubs, and you had to ride 2 per cart, because they didn't want their golf course tore up. That's it. I mean, I just think you ought to stay at 2, that's all.
And make sure we understand, we're not saying you have to have 2 riders per cart. It's 2 carts per foursome. For instance, if you have 2 people with individual carts, and there's a foursome, and 2 of the people are walking, those 2 people can still take their carts out. It's just that you can't go more than 2 carts a foursome. That's the thing. Make sure we get the terminology right. Anyone else? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, you know I'm not a golfer, but I do.
I hurt my back the other day. I'm not either, believe me.
But just to clarify for me, I think to save the wear and tear on the golf course would be more sensible to keep it the way it is. That's all I have.
Your pleasure,
Change
gentlemen.
it, don't address it all the time, just keep it that way. That's it.
I do understand Mr. Nugent's, the comments he's gotten, because believe me, I've gotten them too, and I do understand it. It's a very, very tough decision. I just don't, okay, your pleasure. If someone wants to make a motion and be voted on up and down either way, or there's no motion, it stays the way it is. It's up to you.
Well, I think maybe we should just put it to death in a final form, and that is I'll make the motion that we go back to a discretion as far as the number of people per car.
Say that again, Jim. So we have, so you want to do what now?
The motion is that we will go back to 1 person per car if that is the choice of the individual.
Okay, so you heard the motion is that rather than 2 carts per foursome, we would go back to individual carts, is what you're saying. If they wish, if they wish. So it would be changing from 2 cars per foursome to possibly 4 cars per foursome, it'd be individual. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second for the motion? And again, I'm not, because if there's not a second, then the motion simply dies. Hearing no second to the motion dies. Okay, so Jim, you're right, and it's a good point. It's a point. Because of what you did just now, we stay, even though we had it out there to vote on, we stay at 2 carts per foursome.
That's correct.
Mr. Coffey, correct? Okay. All right, gentlemen? It's a tough issue. All right. Manager's report.
The ARC meeting on the 4th of January, there were 28 items, all were approved. The ARC meeting on the 18th, 11 consent, 10 were approved, 1 tabled, 7 others, 5 were approved, 2 were denied. Next ARC meeting is February 1st in the administration building. Violations meeting on the 14th. There were 8 in compliance before the meeting, 3 deferred working with homeowners. 1 case was a duplicate and 16 cases were found in violation. Next meeting is this Friday at 10 o'clock in this building. Food and beverage updates, the dueling piano ticketed event is sold out. Doors open at 5 o'clock. Food and beverages may not be brought into the event. 4th annual Barefoot by the Lake Festival is coming up soon, February 11th and 12th. So a lot of artisans and food vendors along with free great music. The Grady and the Jets tickets are still on sale. Elton John tribute on March 25th. Theater style seating. And going on sale Wednesday, February 2nd will be the 50s, 60s rock and roll doo-wop dance show on April 9th in building. I say that 5 times quickly if you can go sleep tonight. Tickets are $20 with round table seating. All Winter Beat Series stores and bars open at 5 and food is available. Property services, Mr. Getz's folks have been very busy as usual, replacing worn out items and beginning the work on the ladies' restroom in this building, finishing up tree trimming that we do when we take the Christmas decorations down because we have rented the lift, and a bunch of things. And Mr. Getz, aka New Guy, is very happy. He's got his budget submittal in It's one of those love-hate relationships that there's not a lot of love involved. Golf Pro Shop, the picnic scoreboard is still in permitting. We've got several golf tournaments coming up. See the Pro Shop for details. The Lake Bank Restoration Project started last Wednesday. Weather permitting, estimated completion is mid-March. And Ernie'd like to thank all the volunteers and staff and players who participated in the Sandy LaBello Veterans Memorial Golf Tournament. They raised over $3,700 that will benefit American Legion Post 366 and the Barefoot Bay Veterans Council. A couple updates, as I mentioned at the town hall meeting, the fire alarm is now connected to the hood system. The final round of inspections are in process of being called in, and ribbon cutting and grand opening will be scheduled shortly. The trailer restroom at the tennis courts, staff received notice this week that the unit's nearing completion and it's been assigned a VIN number. It should be delivered in the next 45 days. Folks who play horseshoe, pickleball, tennis courts will notice in the upcoming weeks the modest relocation of the horseshoe shed and the concrete work prior to installation of the tennis courts. And if you wondered why we didn't have old business, the violation committee vacancies, no one is applying for it. We've been trying for November 22nd, so if you're out there and your New Year's resolution is to be involved in your community, we need you. See Stephanie Brown and meet twice a week. You could become like Mr. Brinker. He started at the VC and now he's one of my 5 bosses that I dearly love. So we need you. Please apply. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Before we get to Mr. Carey's report, again, make sure that when we have the minutes, that the decision that we went through about the golf carts is that the decision is there's 2 carts per foursome, not 2 riders per cart. 2 carts per foursome, because there's a big difference. Mr. Carey, attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to let you know that 3 of the enforcement cases have been transferred over to me as the attorney of record. The remaining cases, Cliff has a few more motions that need to be filed before he can turn them over, as he discussed in his report last meeting, but those will be handled in due course, and we're getting moving.
Good. You know, you weren't here for most of the town hall meeting. You didn't hear all of that stuff, but you did get at the end there. We're done. I guess Mr. Coffey will be talking to you, but we definitely need to have you look at that DOR thing, any clauses there, that see if there is any legal perspective at all that would fall on us. I mean.
Yeah, and I just heard about this today, but
Yeah.
I will spend tomorrow looking into that, and I'll talk to Mr. Coffey.
No, we don't need a 6-month report on it, remember, but we know.
Understood.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're set fee, aren't we? That's right. Okay, you can take as much time as you want. Okay. No, we do need to look at that. Anything else, sir?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Incidental trustee remarks. Mr. Brinker, Mr. Nugent, I'm sorry.
Yeah, John, where are we, any update on the Shaw lease, the CVO lease, the Stewart lease? I don't think it will be Attorney Carey's responsibility. I think it goes back to Attorney Record.
I had communications with Cliff yesterday, and he said the Shaw CVO leases are imminent. We've not received word back from Stewart Medical, which is not a good sign on that. It's sort of like that relationship where the other party's not returning your texts or phone calls. That loving feeling is disappearing.
Thank you.
And I believe Shaw has taken over the bank, right? The bank president. Mr. Brinker.
Yes. I got a little speech here, and John's gonna help me if my impediment starts acting up. I would like to request a consensus of the board to instruct staff after the proposed budget is finalized in March to prepare and request for qualifications of an electrical company, a plumbing company, and an AC service. This would allow us to select one vendor in each field to have continuing service contracts similar to engineering, IT, and pool services. This would save property service time in getting minor quotes and provide us with a locked-in labor costs. Thank you.
We're not talking about putting these people on retainer or something, or?
Not so much retainer, it's sort of like our relationship with TLC. You would, RFQs are not that common in government, but it's when you request proposals and the price is not something that's initially graded upon. What it enables you to do is, if, say for HVAC, if you did an RFQ for HVAC service, you eventually get a company that you have a continuing service agreement with a specified labor cost for different types of labor. When Mr. Getz would need to replace an HVAC unit, he would call this company and request a proposal. As long as it appeared reasonable to us, we would then not be required to get a second quote because we've competitively sourced this company to begin with. It doesn't lock us into having to use this company. Like our pool services, we have a pool service vendor, but we are able to use other pool companies as we deem fit. That this is something Mr. Brinkler has talked to me before about. Mr. Getz and I, ironically, we've talked about this over the last few years, but we've never had the time to get this together. With Ms. Levy on board now, we have that capacity to put these together. I think this would help streamline things and have a productivity and cost savings, because one of the problems of getting multiple bids is if you have use AC for an example, if ABC Cooling is doing good work for you and their prices are reasonable, XYZ Cooling gets a little tired coming out to give you a bid because they know you're going to end up going with ABC all the time. And so Mr. Brinkler's proposal would be to go out for bids, qualifications, and run it through similar to an RFP process. It would not, his proposal would not lock the board into using specific vendors, but it would be an option to explore having a designated person to round it specifically. There's no charge to us when we're not using like ABC AC service. It's just we wouldn't have to go for that second bid for minor projects.
Again, key word there is minor projects, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and we have some, I mean, we do something like that with TLC right now, correct? I mean, that's what we do right now. Okay, thank you. Any other thing? Mr. Morrissey?
I have two questions for John. I'd like an update on the beach project. Has the permits been issued yet, or what do we anticipate the completion date?
We're waiting on the site plan to be redesigned by the engineers, and once we get the revised site plan, the revised site permit through the county will be processed, and then the DEP separate permit will be processed. Concurrently, we would be able to solicit quotes for a general contractor to do the work. I think realistically, although no one likes to hear that it's not going to be done tomorrow, I think realistically we're looking at a summertime completion of this project.
And the second question is the police survey?
Pardon?
The police survey?
The speeding?
Survey,
The survey?
yeah, from the police department about the traffic conditions?
That's on Sally's list. She was out last week.
Yeah, we were not able to get an update on that, but, it's probably gonna I would think it's scheduled sometime in the first half of this coming year, because originally we were told like 6 to 10 months.
It's probably that,
It seems like it.
Yeah.
The thing to remember is regardless of what the survey says, law enforcement officers in Florida have discretion whether to write tickets or not. So it can come back and say that there's a speeding problem, and it doesn't mandate the deputies to write tickets for a certain speed limit over.
well, that's not really the problem. It is a problem because of the tickets, yeah, I understand that, but it has to be a better solution to just getting tickets. Because, yes, it is a discretion to the police department, however, there is people that walk the streets, you know, and walk the dogs and ride their bicycles. You know, they don't have a choice if they get killed, you know?
Oh,
We need to have, it's a very serious problem we have here.
And it's speeding is a problem nationwide. It's just not Barefoot Bay.
Well, I realize that, but we're trying to get a solution, and it seems like we're fighting it. We're fighting the project.
And partly because every place in Brevard County perceives speeding to be a problem. This is not unique to Barefoot Bay. You know, homes are close to the roads here, but ultimately, you know, law enforcement and traffic enforcement is the county jurisdiction and not ours.
Okay.
Mr. Amos?
I spent some time writing this thing up that I was gonna read at a budget meeting that, since we didn't have one, I'm gonna read it now. Just bear with me here, because it's confuses me. I wanted to give an overview on a water bill increase that we're gonna be having in the next 3 years, because that's what our county commissioners want to do. I'll tie that into this evening's concerns in a minute. They're proposing a water use rate increase of 10% for year 1, 13% for year 2, and 10% for year 3, which equates to an actual increase of 34.6% over this year's rates. There's already a resolution 13-0021 on the books that has been increasing our bills by about 3% per year since 2013, and there's no end on that resolution, so it keeps on going. Barefoot BBRD's water bill, I got, averages what I can see about $47,000 per year. So it runs about $3,900 a month at the present rate. So at the end of the 3 hikes, the rate will have been increased by $1,455 a month. So that increase equates to $17,460 for a total rate of $64,460 a year. That increase at the end of the 3-year period equates to a 30-cent more from each homeowner per month over today's rates. So I needed you to understand that it's not just a problem for this budget, but it's going to be ongoing if that resolution goes into effect. Now for this year's part, this year's increase will be $400 a month, or $4,800 for the year. So 8 cents per month to all homeowners. Now if you add that to the increase of wages that I gathered from part of what John put out there, of $135,454, and then I divided it by 5,000 homeowners for $2,709 per year, and I divided that by 12 months, which equals $2.26. And we add that 8 cents for the water, gives you a $2.30% increase just for these 2 items. And we're talking about a lot more on our budget. So if you subtract that from the maximum assessment increase that we can even give of $3.23, that leaves us 89 cents for other things for our budget. So the money has to come from somewhere else. I'm just stating the facts. I wasn't really making a statement either way on the assessment. So in final, please, all of you, contact our county commissioner and try to put a stop to this new water increase, because it's not only going to kill Barefoot Bay's budget, it's killing your home budget too. Thank you.
Question for you, isn't it already in? And didn't they already
No.
approve it?
No, they haven't had the hearings yet on it. It's supposed to be around this month, March, that if they put it in, that's probably when they're gonna put it in. And I'm not even sure, I asked Mr. Carey to look into that resolution, because I don't know, how can you put a bigger increase when you already have a resolution out making an increase every year anyway? So I'm not exactly sure our new commissioners even know that the other one's on the books, and we're getting hit at 3% a year since 2013. The reason they put that out there is the exact same reason that they're giving for this new rate increase. That they said the Barefoot Bay's water treatment plant needs to be fixed, and this is the only way they can pay for it. Well, they said the same thing in 2013, and they charged us, they took a loan out of $77 million, and it just kind of disappeared. So now they want more money to do the same thing they promised us they were gonna do that. So I'm suggesting, asking everybody, get a hold of your county commissioner and find out what's going on before we get nailed again. Thank you.
And just as a side note, for those listening at home, we did not do this. This is the county, so they don't think the Board of Trustees
That's
did
why I
it.
brought it up, it's the county commissioner.
Right. Any other comments, questions? Anything good for, I have nothing to add. Anything good for the order? Can I have a motion, anything else, Mr. Coffey, Mr. Carey? Steph, anything? No? Okay, and can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Nugent, second. Mr. Brinker, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries, meeting adjourned.